good. You're all good or you wouldn't be here. But people who are good want to get better. And you're all in some sort of management progression or leadership progression. You know, I love the, any of you know American Sign Language? A little bit or a lot? Yes. Well, then you correct me if I'm wrong, because I read this and I thought this was just so appropriate. The sign for manage is like with the reins of the horse, okay? You manage, okay? You manage. And the sign for leadership is the hands rocking and put together. And to me, that is extremely powerful in terms of the difference. We manage, okay? We control, okay? Managers control. Real leaders nurture in a very powerful way. And so all of you want to be leaders, need to be leaders. We have never had a greater need for leaders than we do today. You are living business history. You are in the most incredible position that has ever been in the history of business. I think it's the most important thing. Content or delivery?
Delivery.
Delivery. Is that unanimous?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I think you can make definitely a case for both. And I don't want you to ever lose sight of the fact that really, while we are a very superficial generation and society, we do judge people by how they present themselves, and we do judge the book by its cover and all the other cliches that go along with it. There is a moral responsibility that you have as a speaker to always be prepared, to have something valuable to say, to be authentic, and to have a worthwhile message. Very important. So please, while we do talk about nonverbal language, reading other people, strategy in terms of creating that person that you want to be as an oral presenter, remember that content is fundamental and extremely important. You need to always be prepared and have something valuable to say. Make sure that when you finish speaking, there has been value added. But that being said, we all know that if you have oil in the ground and you don't have a pipeline to get that oil out of the ground, what do you have? Oil in the ground. We're going to work on eye control. You ever hear the expression, the eyes have it? You know, in Robert's Rules of Order, the eyes have it. The eyes have everything. The eyes have trust, integrity, love, meaning, emotion, commitment, cooperation, dedication, resilience, intelligence, and a desire to relate. All through the eyes. We fail to utilize this quality, and we don't develop it like we should. And yet it is the most important thing. So this is the way we're going to do this exercise, okay? You, as the audience, we're going to bring the speakers up, and this time you're going to, let's see, you're going to tell, yes, I want you to tell a story, an action story, an incident or a scenario from work, something that you are involved in. So I'm going to give you a minute to think about the story. You won't have to have an outline because the story has a natural sequence. Okay? So I'll give you a few minutes to think about the kind of story that you want to tell. Dream up a story. You can make a few notes, think about it. I'll give you just a minute. And as an audience, this is what you're going to do. You're going to, when the person comes up to speak, you're going to raise your hand in the audience. And you're going to go, hold your hand up, and you're going to count. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005. And when the speaker has maintained eye contact with you 4 or 5 seconds, you'll put your hand down. Okay? So that's what you're doing as a speaker, and then that's what the audience is doing.
Things off with a little bit of humor about an alligator story, and I thought I would do the same thing. Many of you know I have quite a drive to school. I live in a little place called Orangedale, about 45 minutes south of JU. And we have a place on the river, and most of the time when I'm not working on a white paper or research on a goal, we're spending our time on the river. We have a swim platform and a dock and a boat, so we're either pulling around friends on boats or skiing, or so we have fire pits, so we'll have some beverages out by the fire, do some fishing. We routinely have city slickers that come visit us, and when I say city slickers, it's people who aren't as accustomed to some of the lifestyle of living out on the outskirts of town like we do. So anyways, we do some fishing, and later in the day things get kind of slow, and I thought, all right, well, things are getting kind of boring for some of these city slickers. There was an alligator that was swimming by, and I thought, wow, it'd be cool if we caught this alligator. Let some of these guys take some pictures. They've never seen a real alligator before. Let's take it from there. So I bait up a hook with a shiner on it. 20 minutes later, I'm fighting an alligator and bringing it back to the dock. We get it in, bring it up to the house, take the hook out, take pictures. We get a bunch of pictures with the kids, doing the Steve Irwin with the crocodile or the alligator around their necks. And actually watch it run around the yard a little bit. Then at the end of the day, our city slicker friends leave, and I take it with my daughter, who was about 8 years old at the time, and I throw it in a 162 quart cooler. It's a big fishing cooler. So we take it and we put it in the cooler, and because we swim there often off our swim platform, we didn't want to let it go there because we kind of wanted to move it on and didn't want to kill it. So we drove across the Shands Bridge and we went over to Green Cove Springs, snuck up to the boat ramp because it is illegal to handle an alligator, so we're trying to be a little discreet about it. Backed into the boat ramp, pulled the alligator out of the backseat of the car where this cooler was, ease it into the water, kind of back off a little bit, and then he goes under and we don't see him for a little while. And I thought, okay, let's see where he comes up. So my daughter and I are sitting there waiting for this alligator head to pop up. Boat of old timers pulls up, old John boat. They've been fishing out there all day. And the alligator pops up about the same time. So I'm just standing there with my daughter. I have my arm around her like this, and we're watching. And it's kind of neat watching him swim off a little bit. And the old timers say, hey, honey, if you look out there, you'll see yourself a real alligator. There's a real alligator just outside the boat ramp. And she just kind of whispers to me, hey, do you think we should tell him that it was just in our car about 15 minutes ago? That's my story.
All right.
It's a true story.
True story. So for a man who can wrestle the alligators, okay, I don't know if I even have any feedback for that.
Yeah, it was this big.
It was one of these.
Okay, so what about feedback for Joe?
It was engaging. It was a very engaging story.
Very engaging story. What about the body, the mannerisms, the eye contact? Was everybody good with it? Linda was last to put her hand down. Did you get the full 5 seconds, you think, of eye contact? Uh-huh.
He did it in stretches, though.
He did it in stretches?
Moved on.
Okay. So
Similar to what I did.
okay, so we need to work on the eye contact. Again, I think
But is it better to give a lot over time, or?
No, you want to connect, yes, you want to connect with individuals in your audience for an extended period of time so that they know that you have found them in the audience and that you are speaking directly to them. You have something meaningful to say. And you are not, your hands need to match what you're saying with your eye contact.
I gotta get out to Joe's house.
I know. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's forever. Can't be created or destroyed. Energy is there. So this time we're going to do a 1 minute story again, and we want to focus on energy. Some of you have it already. Melissa could lead, okay? She's got that energy. But we all want to see if we can come up with that animation that gives stories, our oral presentations, life. Okay? So that's the focus this time. Keeping in mind that we're going to do all of these other things as well. Keeping in mind the vocal qualities of pitch, volume, and pace, and then looking at all of the visual elements of the nonverbal presentation.
I come from a really, really big family, and all of my older siblings, I'm the youngest of 12, so for some time, all of my siblings were married. In 2006, I was very, very close to my dad. My mom died when I was 3. My dad never remarried, just like dedicated his life to raising the kids, the younger ones. So my dad died in 2006, but up until that time, when I got probably in my late 20s, early 30s, whenever we'd go around family reunions and all this stuff, my brothers would always tease me about, at some point, you got to find somebody that you can like and like longer than a year. You know, what's the problem? And so they would always tease me about, you know, Melissa has this list. He has to be 6 feet tall, you know, handsome, 6-figure salary, no kids, all this kind of stuff. I had this ridiculous list of what I wanted in a man. So after my dad died in 2006, I kind of came out of the box a little bit. I'm like, okay, maybe it's unrealistic. Okay, your dad has died. He kind of filled the gap of this is my man for a while, but you probably should start seriously looking for a husband. So I was in the line one day in a restaurant and met this guy. Long story short, he's my husband today, but prior to then, he's a blue-collar worker, and that kind of went against everything that I ever wanted, you know, because he needed to be in corporate America wearing a suit every day. Kind of remind me of my brothers. But he was tall and handsome. But anyway, so he called himself was courting me or whatever, trying to date me. And so I would always say, well, I can't imagine a man, you know, early 30s, you don't really own any property or anything, you don't have a house, you know. And I had already bought my house, so I'm thinking, okay, so what do you have going for yourself? He had a son, which was a big strike because it was the whole baby mama drama thing. So I'm like, okay, so you have a son, he met the tall, dark, and handsome, but I'm like, you don't own anything. And so he would be calling me from time to time. He's like, okay, so are you going to take me serious ever? And I'm like, yeah. So I came home one weekend. I was traveling during this time. Came home one weekend and said, maybe we should go and start looking at some property, some house. And his brothers would always say, she already has a house. Why do you have to find a house? What's the big deal? So long and short, we started looking at condos, and he decided he was going to buy a condo for investment property. But he really was checking a box for me. He didn't know that. But anyway, he was looking for investment property. So I have a friend in my church who's a realtor. So I said, maybe you should work with Cheryl to just kind of help him, see if he's serious about it. So anyway, we would go and we were casually dating or whatever. So she ran his credit report to see if he qualified for a house. So she called me on the phone. She was like, oh my God, the boy has perfect credit. Okay, I gotta go. I hung up. And so I called him and I said, it's official, we're dating. We got married like 8 months later.
Okay.
I know that seems superficial, but that was really important to me, that he had good credit.
No, it's
I didn't want him like leeching off of me.
It's a rule, Melissa.
It is.
It is a rule. It's called Financial Literacy 101 for women. Absolutely, it's a rule.
Not. The baby mama drama stayed, but the good credit.
Okay, all right. So what about the energy here?
Nobody's going to be able to match that.
High energy, very intense, very sincere. She does something with her head, though. She looks up. She goes back for her answers to the ceiling. I'd like to see you work on that. I mean, I'm not sure what you'll see it in the
I think
videotape.
I'm looking to God to help me.
Well, he does, okay, of course. But if I'd like to see you look more, you'll see it in the videotape quite clearly. Anything else? Anything else?
Very good.
Great energy. All right.